Hey guys, this is POTB. In this video I would like to teach you how to stop being hungry. But before I start with the explications and everything, I would like to point out that this video is actually related to a full blog post that is on my website beatonthebeat.com. So just in case you want to find out more, I'll put a link in the description box down below. So by visiting that link, you're going to be able to read the full article and everything. So with all that being said, let's start with the whole video. Regardless of what the food companies want to make you believe, the sense of hunger is not always triggered by the lack of food in your system. Being hungry doesn't necessarily mean that your energy reserves are depleted. In fact, most often is the totally opposite. Having difficulties controlling your hunger is not about having more willpower or discipline than the next guy or the next gal. It's about having proper hormonal balance. So the first thing that I would like to discuss with you are the types of hunger. As you probably already know, guys, there are two types of hunger: physical and psychological. According to many studies, that is the actual difference between having a craving and experiencing some real form of hunger. The physical hunger is the real hunger. The psychological hunger are the cravings. So now let's cover what is the difference between both. While the first indicates there are not enough nutrients for energy production, the second, the psychological hunger, is an illusion triggered by the habit of constant eating, or something I would personally call a hallucination caused as a side effect of food addiction. Okay, I'm gonna repeat that one more time. A hallucination caused as a side effect of a food addiction. Believe it or not, even though they are not paying attention to it, a lot of people out there, actually most of the people out there, don't eat because they experience some real form of hunger, like real form of physical hunger. They do it because they're simply not interested in the things they do. They try to fill the empty spaces throughout the day, and they also use it as a social drug, but we are going to cover this in a moment. In other words, they do it because of boredom, and the other main reason is because their brains want to get a bit of stimulation. And right now I'll explain exactly what I'm talking about. Typically people crave foods like highly processed sugars, rich in carbohydrates products, rich in carbohydrates foods. But surprisingly, or not so surprisingly to most of us, I believe, those exact foods work on the same reward mechanisms of the brain, such as many of the heaviest drugs. I'm talking about mostly the heaviest stimulants out there. For example, crack, cocaine, the alcohol. The alcohol is not a stimulant, but it also works on the same reward mechanisms of the brain. And here I would like to ask you something. Have you ever heard the popular quote, "Food is the most abused drug for anxiety"? Here I would like to say that in my personal opinion, it is definitely not only the most abused drug for anxiety, it is one of the most abused drugs in general. So now let's get back to the hunger subject. There are three main hormones that play key roles when it comes to suppressing appetite and controlling hunger. Those are leptin, ghrelin, and cholecystokinin, aka CCK. So right now I'll start with the first one, and that is the ghrelin. Also known as lanomorelin, ghrelin is made and released by cells located in the upper part of the stomach and the intestines. The name of the hormone comes from the fact that it's a growth hormone releasing peptide. It's called a hunger hormone because it increases your appetite. The way it works is by sending a signal to your brain. That signal tells the brain that the body is low on fuel, so you have to eat something in order to avoid that. So now let's cover when ghrelin is secreted and what increases the secretion of ghrelin. Ghrelin is secreted when the stomach is empty, and when it's full, the secretion stops. For the average people, I mean the people who are not adapted to the state of ketosis, fasting or not eating elevates blood levels of ghrelin, and they of course drop after the person eats a meal. However, it's not that simple, and different types of food actually produce different results. I know it sounds too complicated, but please bear with me and I will explain you exactly what I'm talking about. A study showed that injecting mice with ghrelin caused increase of their food consumption and also led to weight gain and less usage of fat for energy. Doing the same experiments with humans actually produced identical results because they increased their food intake with almost 30%. So now let's take a quick look at some of the things that cause ghrelin levels to go up. There are two main things that surely elevate levels of ghrelin: The first one is the drastic caloric restriction many people use in order to lose weight. The reason for that is because the caloric deficit, or a calorie restricted diet, if I can put it like this, puts your brain in starvation mode. So when in starvation mode, your brain thinks it should conserve more energy, you should eat more, so that makes you hungry, also makes you tired because you're really not able to use the energy properly. The second thing that causes ghrelin levels to go up are rich in carbohydrates and sugar, highly processed foods. Believe it or not, there is a study which shows that those foods give a bit of satiety for a while after eating them, but actually up to 2 hours after having the meal, they elevate the ghrelin levels almost twice. And even though it is obvious, the third thing that is actually linked to high levels of ghrelin and obesity is not getting enough sleep or sleep deprivation in general. So the second hormone that I would like to talk about in this video, guys, is leptin. Leptin is the totally opposite of ghrelin. Both of them are peripheral signals with central effects. So leptin is mainly secreted by the fat cells, but also by other various tissues such as the heart, skeletal muscles, stomach and others. The name comes from the Greek word leptos, and that Greek word leptos actually means thin. How it works is by decreasing hunger, and that is why it is called satiety or satisfaction hormone. Leptin primarily targets the brain's area called hypothalamus, and there are leptin receptors also in the gut. So because I know what you're probably thinking, here I believe is the right place to cover something very important. It makes perfect sense that since it's mainly produced by the fat cells, the fatter someone is, the more leptin his or her body produces, so the less hungry they are. But surprisingly, in the reality, things don't work that way. In this specific situation, fat cells are too many and they push way too much leptin to the receptors. What happens ultimately is that the receptors try to protect themselves from the excessive amounts by resisting them, and the individual becomes what is called leptin resistant. That means the hormone can't enter the receptors in the person's brain, so practically the hunger can't be suppressed. Even though that person has a lot of leptin, it is not available to his or her body. Obviously, that forces them to stay hungry all of the time. Some of the latest studies actually suggest that leptin resistance is the leading factor for fat gain and obesity. And right now I know what you're also thinking. Binge eating disorder, it is a strong sign if someone is leptin resistant. Most definitely that is true, but there's some more as well. Because it puts the brain in starvation mode, leptin resistance also causes reduced energy expenditure and more fat storing. The brain thinks you need to eat more food and actually conserve more energy in order to avoid that. That is the starvation mode. Being fat makes you hungry. Being hungry forces you to eat more, so you become fatter, sicker, hungrier, more tired, and I believe that is a vicious cycle. So right now, guys, let's discuss another thing that heavily increases leptin secretion, and that is insulin. So what you want to do is to keep your blood sugar levels under control in order to keep insulin under control, and therefore that will help you avoid having those dangerously high levels of leptin. So the third hormone I would like to speak about in this video, guys, or the third important player in the game of overcoming hunger, is cholecystokinin. Also known as CCK, it is a peptide hormone that stimulates the digestion of fat and protein. It is secreted and synthesized by the first segment of the small intestine, and it also acts as a massive hunger suppressant. In other words, cholecystokinin makes you full. That fullness that I always talk about when people asking me about calories and all of that stuff, and my response is always, I do not track calories, I eat until reach fullness. That is the fullness that I'm talking about. Cholecystokinin makes you full, helps you reach that fullness. CCK also enhances the effects of leptin. A controlled study showed that people injected with CCK actually experienced less desire to eat in general, and ultimately reduce the amounts of food they eat. Therefore, naturally boosting cholecystokinin production is a killer hack you should use in order to overcome your hunger. So now let's cover when it's released and what actually helps CCK production. Cholecystokinin is released when there is an increase of ketone bodies or free fatty acids. When that happens, CCK suppresses the production of ghrelin. That is very important, the hunger hormone. Going on a high-fat, low-carb diet and actually going on a no-carb, high-fat, moderate protein is the thing that I would like to encourage you to do. That thing produces almost equivalent results from the ones people get after doing gastric surgery. So just in case you're not familiar with what gastric surgery is, I definitely encourage you to Google that thing out. I really don't want to get into details. Basically, it is a very, very drastic measurement some obese individuals use in order to suppress their appetite. So right now, guys, as a summary of the whole video, I would like to give you a few simple tips you can apply in order to overcome your hunger and never feel hungry again, actually. So the first thing is to reduce body fat, therefore we will decrease the leptin production from the fat cells. The second thing is, of course, to keep your insulin under control. As we already covered, high insulin almost always equals high levels of leptin as well, so keep your insulin under control. The third thing that I would like to give you is the elimination of foods that cause elevation of ghrelin levels. And the fourth thing is actually related to the third thing. Eat more foods that will keep you full and well satiated. Basically, eat more foods that will help you produce more cholecystokinin, aka CCK. Those are high-fat foods. Go on a high-fat diet, high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet. Minimize the amounts of carbs you consume. Increase the amounts of high-quality fats that you consume. And the fifth thing is to avoid sleep deprivation and get enough high-quality sleep. That is probably obvious. So now you're probably wondering, guys, how to get all of those things, how to get all of the things from the list I just gave you. And the answer is very simple. Enter the state of ketosis. So just in case you want to find out how to enter the ketogenic state the fastest possible way, I'll put another link in the description box down below with a full blog post and video of me giving you tips how to enter the state of ketosis the fastest possible way. So you're gonna be able to get all of those things from the list I just gave you. And yeah, that is basically everything I wanted to say in this video. I hope you find the content helpful. I hope you like the video. If so, please do not hesitate, click on the thumbs up button down below. You can also feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more content. You can also subscribe to my blog, that is peteonthebeat.com. So yeah, I'm gonna wrap it up for now, guys. Good luck overcoming your hunger and doing the intermittent fasting effortlessly, the 1 meal a day plan or whatever. And of course, keep flexing. Peace, and I'm out.